The following program is the work of the broadcast students at the British Columbia Institute of Technology. BCIT Magazine features news stories from around the Lower Mainland which were produced over the last week. Responsibility for the content of the show rests completely with the students and their instructors.
Coming up on BCIT Magazine, full coverage of the Burnaby South by-election,
including an interview with BCIT's government strategist,
and a close look at how the results will affect students.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Noah Bergstrom.
And I'm Graham Cox.
We're wearing pink today in support of Pink Shirt Day.
A great initiative to stop bullying. Burnaby South voters went to the polls this week for a by-election, widely seen as a test for NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. Our reporter Emily Vance has the story.
Jagmeet Singh has secured a seat in the House of Commons after a sweeping win in Burnaby South.
You know, when I was growing up as a kid, I could have never imagined someone like me ever running to be Prime Minister. Well, guess what? We just told a lot of kids out there that yes, you can.
It's a big win, and it means Singh can retain his position as the head of the federal NDP. Leading up to the voting, the coverage focused on Singh's bid for Parliament. Voters seemed to notice others in the running were not in the spotlight.
It was kind of inundated by news articles about the greater implications of this election.
This time I'm mostly voting based upon a larger party scheme.
Singh beat out latecomer Richard Lee, the replacement for the original Liberal candidate Karen Wang. She stepped down over controversial comments made about Singh's heritage. Newcomers to federal politics, the People's Party of Canada came in fourth with 11% of the vote. Candidate Laura Lynn Thompson says her party is bringing new ideas to the federal scene.
It's like a wave that's going across the nation. It's bringing hope to people. People finally feel that there's something worth voting for. We have so many that have said, I gave up on voting. I gave up on the whole political process.
Singh says he'll continue fighting for people in Burnaby South and work to be their champion in Parliament. With 8 months to go before the next federal election, the race is on. Emily Vance in Burnaby for BCIT Magazine.
Our reporter Emily Vance learned more about how the crucial by-election will affect Burnaby South residents.
Today on BCIT Magazine, we're sitting down with the BCIT Student Association's Government Relations Strategist. This is Stuart McGillivray. Stuart, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. Today we're talking about the federal by-election in Burnaby South. Jagmeet Singh won with 39% of the vote, and now he has about 8 months in the House of Commons until he'll be running as a bid for Prime Minister. Now, that's a little bit of a short time frame. Stuart, what can you tell us about what do you think he can achieve in this amount of time?
Yeah, it is a shorter time frame, definitely. I mean, Mr. Singh has the advantage of having been the leader since I think late 2017. So it has definitely been challenging, though, to get as much pickup on the national stage without a seat in the House of Commons. So this will really help to set the narrative. You'll have the government defending its policies, but now with opposition from both the Conservatives on the right and the NDP on the left, and that'll balance the narrative out a bit more and really give him a platform pretty much every week whenever the House of Commons is sitting to distinguish himself and put forward his party's idea.
There was obviously a lot of talk of Jagmeet Singh in this federal election, or in this by-election, and probably received much more press than it normally would have, just due to him being a federal leader. What are your thoughts on him specifically and what he can do for Burnaby South?
Yeah, I mean, the party leaders have, they wear a lot of hats. He has a responsibility to lead his caucus of about 44 members in the House, but he also represents a constituency now, Burnaby South, and that's always a challenge for any party, for government or opposition, to exercise those two duties. But I believe it'll be a positive outcome for BCIT students. It certainly means that we can voice our concerns not just to any MP, but to an MP who leads the national party, and hopefully that'll be good for students and help us advance the interests of BCIT Student Association members.
Are there any issues that the BCIT SA wants to specifically bring up with leadership in the riding?
We're still in the process of developing a lot of our advocacy positions, but we definitely we're quite enthusiastic about a lot of the issues that Mr. Singh and other parties have highlighted around environmentalism and sustainability, certainly the cost of post-secondary education, and how we tackle housing affordability. Those are issues that affect students quite a bit, and we're optimistic about a lot of the positions that Mr. Singh and other candidates and parliamentarians have taken on that. So definitely a lot to work with. Yeah.
Stuart, thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to. Cheers.
Lovely. That was Stuart McGillivray. He is the BCIT Student Association's Government Relations Strategist. I'm Emily Vance, and now we'll head back to our studio.
BCIT made it easier for students to vote by bringing a polling station to the Burnaby campus. My co-anchor Noah Bergstrom got their response.
You might think this series of yellow arrows and signs on campus indicating where people could vote would pique the interest of students and increase voter turnout.
I've seen some yellow signs. I don't know what they are, though. Is it a Burnaby vote or a BCIT vote?
But when Elections Canada and their volunteers set up Burnaby by-election ballot boxes at BCIT, willing voters didn't seem to fit the demographic you would expect at a post-secondary institution.
Classically, students have shown sort of apathy towards voting. A lot of younger voters don't get out there and actually vote and have their opinions represented in Parliament. So one of the reasons why we wanted to have this voting station on campus was to make sure that students have access to vote so they can actually get their opinions out there.
Christian and the Student Association weren't alone in trying to promote young adult turnout. The age group between 18 and 24 owns the lowest turnout rate in the country. A turnout rise of 18% from 2011 to 2015's federal vote shows that those numbers are trending upward. However, Monday's by-election didn't seem to resonate much with BCIT students, and many passed on hitting the polls.
All I'm really aware of is I think the NDP leader is running in it, right? That's all I know about it. I don't know much else about it.
Are you going to vote at all today?
Probably. I guess so.
Today, no, hell no. I don't got time. I got too much stuff to do.
Yeah, like when I have time, maybe sometime this week.
Like, I think it's a good idea to do this, but I personally I don't care about politics personally.
BCIT's Student Association tried to organize a debate on campus to drum up interest, but was thwarted by last week's snow day. The association hinted this strategy might be used again during the federal election this October, when a polling place will again be set up on campus. I'm Noah Bergstrom in Burnaby for BCIT Magazine. Coming up after the break, demonstrators in Vancouver rally against the Trans Mountain Pipeline.
And a glimpse into the Whitecaps' upcoming season.
Journalism's changed a lot in the last 20 years, and BCIT's been at the forefront of that evolution.
Those are your news updates for Evolution 1079 News.
Now it seems like the industry is changing by the minute. So now, more than ever, we're taught how to adapt.
The federal government unveiled a new immigration plan that would
When I first started at BCIT, there was only one thing that I really wanted to do in journalism, and this program really opened my eyes to all the avenues of employment. And now I feel really confident that I have the skills to get hired.
From day one, you're out there chasing down stories.
You aren't just sitting in a classroom reading about journalism, you are a journalist.
BCIT Newsroom. I look back at the work I was doing even 3 months ago, and it's just amazing to see how far you can come in such a little bit of time. This program really teaches you skills and techniques to learn how to better communicate.
Jamie Dodd in Vancouver.
In New Westminster.
In Burnaby.
For BCIT Magazine.
Welcome back to BCIT Magazine. The National Energy Board has recommended for a second time a go-ahead on the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion. Our reporter Josh Kilner attended a protest about this decision.
They're here today, but they're thinking about tomorrow. For the second time, the National Energy Board has recommended the federal government to go through with the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion.
I don't know why we don't have the imagination to do something different than the pipeline. I mean, it's obviously a waste of money and time, and yet we're still doing it.
Hundreds of pipeline critics gathered outside the board's head office to ensure their voices were heard.
We don't want to have to worry about an oil spill in Burrard Inlet as well as in any of our waterways across Canada and in general across the world.
Organized by Climate Convergence Metro Vancouver, demonstrators marched down Georgia Street during rush hour. The march came to a stop just in front of the Queen Elizabeth Theatre, where several speakers outlined their opposition.
No, me? No! All right, there we go.
But not everyone was dismayed by the recommendation.
Like, I was just up in Lac La Biche, Alberta, at the first Indigenous-led rally in support of pipelines. And communities up there, they depend on oil revenue for their economy and to lift them out of poverty. And these people, they don't realize they're assisting in that. They're assisting in the destruction of the economy in Indigenous-held lands.
The NEB says an increase in oil tanker traffic would hurt southern resident killer whales and increase greenhouse gas emissions. Despite the effects, the board says the project is in the nation's best interests. However, those interests aren't the same for everyone.
I have 4 children. I hope to have some grandchildren someday, and with this kind of leadership, it doesn't look very promising.
The NEB report would impose 156 conditions if the project is approved, along with 16 new recommendations. Josh Kilner in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
We are now joined by our reporter Josh Kilner. And Josh, can you tell us a little bit more about the NEB's recommendations?
Well, Graham, as I mentioned, there are 16 new recommendations for marine shipping, including a management plan for the Salish Sea and measures to deal with increased underwater noise. These new recommendations go along with 156 previous conditions that the NEB would impose if the federal government decides to go through with the expansion.
And Josh, you mentioned that this is the second time that the pipeline has been recommended?
Yeah, Graham, the original approval was actually squashed in federal court last August due to inadequate consultation with First Nation communities, such as the Squamish Nation and the Tsleil-Waututh. The original process failed to take into account the impacts of marine shipping on the southern resident killer whale population, which has cultural significance to both nations. Back to you.
Thanks, Josh. The Canadian government has recognized Juan Guaido as the legitimate interim president of Venezuela. But not everyone in Vancouver agrees. Our reporter Dan Mountain has the story.
Hands off Venezuela! Hands off Venezuela! No sanctions, no war! No sanctions, no war!
Hands Off Venezuela is a movement from the Vancouver Peace Council. Protesters gathered outside of CBC on Saturday because they believe that the Canadian government should not interfere with Venezuelan politics.
This cannot be allowed to stand.
Not up to people in Canada to say, you know, one of the minor opposition leaders who won a seat in an election a couple of years ago should now be the president of Venezuela. Nobody voted for Guaido for president. Nobody. This is a farce.
The group argues that Canada should not impose more sanctions against the Maduro government because they believe that he was democratically elected.
67% of the voters voted for Nicolás Maduro. If that's not a support of legitimacy, I don't know what else would be. The Venezuelan people have spoken.
The Hands Off protest was a response to Canadians who supported the Trudeau government's decision to commit foreign aid to Venezuela.
The problem in Venezuela is the system that is broken. There's no food, there's no medication. Wherever you see, nothing works.
Protesters, democracies, and scholars around the world have questioned the democratic legitimacy of Venezuela's 2018 election.
When you've stacked the courts and you've essentially neutralized the legislature, and then you hold an election that is so bad that the international community can't say you have electoral legitimacy, At that point, the suggestion that this is a member in good standing in the community of democracies in the Western Hemisphere and the world, it's just not a plausible case.
The Maduro government has closed Venezuela's borders, so the Canadian aid has not yet arrived. Dan Mountain in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
The Vancouver Whitecaps are kicking off their season this weekend. Our reporter Jeff Mallow has more with one of the newest members of the team.
This could be the future for the Vancouver Whitecaps. The Whitecaps hit the pitch in preparation for their upcoming season opener against Minnesota United FC. One of the newest members to the club hails from South Korea and goes by his first name.
What he's surprised about was the scale of this club and how all the staff is managing all the little works.
The team is looking at him for much needed offense. In 2018, the team missed the playoffs and lost local superstar Alphonso Davies to Bayern Munich. The new head coach is hoping that Inbom could be the difference.
Very good.
One of the first players that I spoke about was Inbom, just because of the quality as a player, the technical ability and the decision making he has on the field.
The team has a lot of familiar faces and new ones for this year's campaign. In addition to Inbom, the team has brought in Freddie Montero, who's on his second stint with the club.
I expect to score more goals, and I want to be in the right spot when all these guys that have a lot of energy, that play in the winger, they are going to try to cross the ball, and at the same time we need to keep the zero in the back, so that means I am the first defender.
Dos Santos, Montero, Inbom, and the Whitecaps are all hoping that this year's team takes a step in the right direction. Jeff Mallow in Vancouver, BCIT Magazine.
The Canucks made a few roster changes at the NHL's trade deadline, shipping defenseman Eric Goodbranson to Pittsburgh for winger Tanner Pearson. They take on the Vegas Golden Knights Sunday afternoon. Coming up, a Langley food bank is trying to stay alive in its community.
And a popular video game is brought to life on a local go-kart track.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Are you bored of doing the same thing weekend after weekend? Do you want to try something new? Well, we've got you covered. Come with me.
Enjoy a magical night with Ballet BC this Friday and Saturday. The evening will start off with Jorma Elo and end with a performance choreographed by Canadian Crystal Pite.
Maybe if I keep practicing, I'll make it in the Olympics one day. The UBC Weightlifting and Powerlifting Club will be hosting their first Olympic competition meet this Saturday. Catch the women's compete in the morning and stick around for the men's in the afternoon. Oh, I sure could use a drink right now.
Are you a fan of white, red, or rosé? Then you can't miss the International Wine Tasting Festival happening in Vancouver this weekend. Sip new flavors, return to your favorites, and try wines from all over the world. Cheers!
Do you love craft beer? Do you love yoga? Well, then why not try Yoga on Tap at Steamworks Brewery this Sunday? Learn some new yoga poses while sampling your favorite beers. Have a great weekend.
Welcome back to BCIT Magazine. A food bank in Langley is on the verge of becoming homeless. Our reporter Daria Zargar spoke to the people that are most affected.
A food bank in Langley is feeling the pressure with just weeks left to find a new home. And so is the community that depends on it.
Maybe some people should just wake up and say there's people out here that need help.
Currently, Sources Community Resource Society is located in the basement of a church. Here, they provide meals to refugees, elders, and other members.
With having enough earnings, or perhaps they aren't employed, to be able to purchase enough food to feed their children or even themselves. And so our work is to provide them with 2 days a week of that food. If we're not here to provide that to them and they're not able to find that elsewhere, they're going to go hungry.
Sources supplies food to over 1,100 people. A little less than half of those are children and 65 are babies. Sources is having a tough time trying to find a new location. Part of the problem is sometimes a stigma surrounds having a food bank as a neighbor.
What they think, whether it's just they have this thought in their head that they're all guys who can't be bothered working, they're just, but it's not. It's our community. It's every aspect of our community. It's seniors, it's children, it's families, it's new Canadians.
If Sources can't find a new home by April 30th, Young says many families will starve.
Who can live without food? Nobody. And especially the children. That is really a gut wrencher, that is, when they say they don't want to serve the Langley public, and these are kids and mothers, that have these children and they don't have the money to feed the kids.
For now, Sources is hopeful they'll connect to their Langley community and find a home before time runs out. Daria Zargar in Langley for BCIT Magazine.
Daria joins us now. Daria, how long has the food bank been searching for a new home?
Yeah, well, Noah, they've been on the hunt for about 18 months for a new location and so far have been unsuccessful. Now, Young was told by the end of January that they would have to move out by April 30th. They're hoping with all the media attention that they're getting and the connection they've made with the community that it'll be able to help them find a new place to live.
And what does Sources need to continue providing food to the Langley community?
Well, yeah, so they need a 4,000 to 6,000 square foot area in which they can set up shop. They are also looking to have a warehouse where they can store all of the food, and they've been talking about having a pop-up shop, so it'll be in separate locations in which they'll be feeding these people. However, the problem is that sometimes there's a stigma surrounding having a food bank as a neighbor. Hopefully, this doesn't get in the way of them finding a new home. Back to you.
And thank you for that, Daria. Now, Vancouver City Councillor Jean Swanson wants to keep winter homeless shelters open all year long. The shelters currently close in March, and that means 300 fewer beds for people that need them.
Hundreds of go-kart racers headed to a Richmond track this weekend, but it wasn't your typical race day. My co-anchor Graham Cox has more.
Ladies and gentlemen, dinosaurs and princesses, buckle up and start your engines. About 550 Vancouverites gathered at Speeder's Go-Karts for the city's first ever Mushroom Rally.
Great event. Saw it online. Thought, hey, if you're going to do go-kart racing, you can do it Mario Kart style, why not?
The experience brought the video game Mario Kart to life with racing, costumes of recognizable characters, and live music. Throughout the event, participants showcased their excitement, but it left some thirsting for more.
Yeah, I think an event like these are great for the city to have. Obviously, a one-off's okay, but if it's like an annual thing, it's a week-long event, I think just anything that gets people looking forward to something to get out to, something different, something new and exciting, it's great.
Wong might just get his wish, as event organizers have plans to return.
We are hoping to make it an annual thing. Vancouver's a really big spot, so hopefully we can bring more cool events in general and hopefully back to Vancouver at the end of the year.
Overall, the organizers said they were thrilled that a lot of first-time go-karters came out, whether it was the young or simply the young at heart. Graham Cox in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
This has been your BCIT Magazine for this week. I'm Noah Bergstrom.
And I'm Graham Cox. Thanks for watching. We now leave you with a beautiful sunset over Vancouver.